It happened on a Tuesday. Not a holiday, not a birthday, not one of those days that's supposed to change your life. Just an ordinary Tuesday. My phone lit up on the counter, glowing in that dim kitchen light like it was holding a secret. I wiped my hands, picked it up, and froze. A message from my mother. Don't call or come over. We're done. And don't even think about the will, sweetie. My breath didn't drop. It didn't spike. It stopped. Like my body couldn't decide if this was fear or grief or the moment before an explosion. I typed 2 words back. Got it. And that was the night everything inside me, every loyalty, every wound, every quiet hope, finally cracked open. Before I go any further, if you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you the most, hit that like button. And if you've ever wanted to see karma walk in wearing steel-toed boots, make sure to subscribe. Because what you're about to hear is the story of the night my entire family tried to erase me, and how I walked away so clean, so silent, so powerful, that they never recovered. People always said my family looked picture perfect. The kind of family you see in local business magazines. Dad in his pressed shirts, Mom in pearls, my brother Brandon with that loud, infectious laugh that made him look like he belonged in a commercial for sunscreen or pickup trucks. We were the American dream family of Tulsa. For a long time, I believed that dream too. But the thing about picture-perfect families is this. You don't see the cracks until you're standing close enough to cut yourself on them. My father, Stephen Hayes, built his empire one greasy kitchen at a time. He started young, fixing broken diners, flipping failing restaurants, turning cracked vinyl booths and flickering neon signs into polished, profitable businesses. And he was proud of that. Too proud. He taught us early. Respect isn't given. It's earned through obedience. Not love. Not kindness. Obedience. When I was 12, he sat me at the dinner table and pointed a fork at me like it was a contract. Restaurants are our legacy, Susan. You'll learn the business. I remember looking down at that fork and thinking how heavy it looked, like it already belonged to someone else's life. Because I didn't want the business. I wanted light and color and space, things food grease couldn't touch. I wanted to create, to design, to build something that felt alive. When I told him at 17 that I'd been accepted into an art school in Chicago, he didn't congratulate me. He laughed. A short, sharp sound, like a door slamming shut. If you walk away from this family's work, he said, you walk away from our support. He meant it. More literally than I understood at the time. I paid my own tuition, worked 2 jobs, took out loans. Meanwhile, Brandon, the golden boy, got a brand new car at 16 for helping at the diner, which meant he occasionally wiped a table and posted a photo of it on Facebook. Mom never defended me. She'd pour another glass of wine, smile, the tight little smile she used when she didn't want conflict, and whisper, "He's only hard on you because he sees your potential." But my mother was smarter than she pretended to be. He saw what I saw. Brandon was the chosen one. The heir. The son who could do no wrong. I was the outsider. The child who loved things they didn't understand. Time passed. I built my design firm from a 1-bedroom apartment with a view of a parking lot. Word spread fast. By 30, I was designing boutique hotels, eco-friendly restaurants, luxury spaces across Oklahoma and Texas. But when I came home for dinners, Dad would ask Brandon about his new project, his plans, his big dreams. He'd glance at me only long enough to say, "Cute. You're still doing that decorating thing." Decorating. Not design. Not architecture. Not business partnerships. Decorating. I swallowed a lot back then. I thought biting my tongue was the price of being loved. Then Mom got sick. Breast cancer. A heavy word that sits in your chest like wet sand. I didn't hesitate. I paid for her treatments. Every bill. Every flight to specialists. Every medication insurance wouldn't cover. When Brandon's big business venture collapsed, I wired him $30,000. When Dad needed new equipment for one of the restaurants, I transferred another $18,000. And they always said the same thing. Thank you. Flat. Polite. Then came the next request. Always the next request. Looking back, I think I kept doing it because I wanted them to see me. Not as the backup plan. Not as the child who disappointed them. Just as family. But the problem wasn't family. It was their definition of it. And the night my mother sent that text, I finally understood how deep the rot went. White heavy checkmark, the family meeting. The beginning of the crack. Dad called a family discussion. I should have known it was a setup. We gathered around the long dining table, the one lined with framed photos of Brandon holding trophies, cutting ribbons, smiling too big for every camera. I stood at the far end, laptop open, excitement vibrating in my chest. Because for once I came prepared with something I thought they would be proud of. A proposal. A sustainable design firm that could partner with hotels and restaurants all across the state. Eco-friendly materials. Lower long-term maintenance costs. Energy-efficient layouts. Real numbers. Real projections. The future. I spoke for maybe 5 minutes before Dad interrupted. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You think hotels care about recycled wood? He said, leaning back with a smirk. They want cheap. Not fancy experiments. Brandon snorted without looking up from his phone. Yeah, seriously. Why don't you stick to decorating houses, sis? And Mom, my mother, started rearranging napkins like they were suddenly the most important objects in the room. My hands trembled under the table. But my voice stayed steady. It's not decorating. It's design. It saves money long term. And it's the direction the industry is already moving. Dad cut me off again, sharper this time. We're not wasting money on your pipe dream. Brandon's opening a new location. That's our priority. Something in me cracked. Not loud. Not dramatic. Quiet. Final. Like a string breaking inside your chest. I turned to Mom. Mom, you've seen my work. You know this could succeed. She hesitated, and in that hesitation I felt years of truth. It just sounds risky, Susan. You know how the restaurant business is. Risky. That was the same word Dad used when I told him I wanted to go to college. Then unexpectedly Tara, Brandon's wife, spoke. Soft voice. Shaky hands. But she said it anyway. I think it's innovative. Sustainability matters now. Brandon shot her a look that could have melted steel. She pulled back into silence instantly. Then Dad waved a hand. Enough. Meeting over. As I packed up my laptop, Tara caught my eyes. Mouthed something I wasn't prepared for. I need to tell you something. When Tara whispered, I need to tell you something, it didn't feel dramatic. Felt scared. She waited until the house quieted, until the lights dimmed and Mom started running the dishwasher out of habit. Like clean plates could wash away dirty secrets. I found Tara outside in the driveway, arms wrapped around herself, eyes darting toward the house like she expected someone to follow her. Her voice shook. Brandon's been taking money from the restaurants. My breath hitched. What do you mean? She swallowed hard. Thousands. He's hiding it. I saw the records. He has accounts your parents don't know about. My heart pounded so loud I could feel it in my fingertips. Are you absolutely sure? Tara nodded. A small, frightened movement. I confronted him once. He told me to mind my own business. He said your dad would blame him if they ever found out, and that you'd take the heat, because you're the one who always pays. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Not shock. Recognition. Because I'd suspected for years that something wasn't right. The sudden emergencies. The vague explanations. The missing receipts. But I always assumed my family would never knowingly use me. Turns out knowingly wasn't the problem. Entitlement was. Before I could respond, Dad's voice cut through the night from inside the house. Loud. Irritated. We need to finalize the will. I froze. He wasn't whispering. He wasn't cautious. He was confident. Confident enough to think I wasn't worth keeping in the dark anymore. Brandon's the only one keeping this family together, he said. Then Mom murmured something too soft to hear. And right after that, the sentence that burned through me like acid. Susan's off doing her own thing. She doesn't care about us. My lungs tightened. My hands shook. Because that wasn't disappointment. That wasn't frustration. That was erasure. And in that driveway, under the dim porch light, I realized something devastating. The betrayal wasn't coming. It had already happened. I had just been too loyal to notice. White heavy checkmark, the text that ended everything. The next morning, just before sunrise, my phone buzzed. A new message from Mom. Still in her chat thread, with her contact name still saved as Mom Heartsuit. I opened it quickly, my stomach twisting with the faint hope of an apology. Instead I got, "Don't call or come over. We're done. And don't even think about the will, sweetie." Sweetie. Got that word. She used it like a knife wrapped in cotton. I read the message twice. Then a third time. My chest didn't break. Emptied. Silence settled around me. Not peaceful silence. Not angry silence. The silence of being replaced. I sat on the edge of my bed, the early morning light creeping through the blinds. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the floor and realized something horrifying. I had been financing my own exile. Every bill paid. Every debt cleared. Every emergency covered. I wasn't family. I was the silent funding source behind their lives. I typed back 2 words. Got it. No punctuation. No defense. No begging. Just acceptance. Then I walked to the kitchen. The kettle hissed. The steam rose. The tea steeped in slow spirals. I held the cup between both hands and took a long, bitter sip. And for the first time in years, the quiet didn't hurt. Felt like control. White heavy checkmark, the cut-off. The first act of revenge. I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. Every auto payment. Every scheduled transfer. Every recurring help. All of it lit up on the screen. And one by one, I shut them down. Mom's medical payments? Cancelled. Dad's restaurant supply bills? Deleted. Brandon's loans? Terminated. The money that had flowed like a lifeline for years went still. And it was eerie how good it felt. Each click echoed in the small apartment like a door closing. For once, my money wasn't feeding their silence. It was buying my freedom. By noon, the reactions started. The first call was Mom. Then Dad. Then Brandon. I didn't answer. Not out of anger. But because I finally understood something. I had given them power by being available. The calls kept coming. 20 missed calls. 5 voicemails. A wave of text messages that sounded less like family and more like creditors. You're tearing the family apart. How could you do this to your mother? You'll regret this, Susan. I flipped my phone face down. And the silence that followed felt like oxygen for the first time in years. When midnight hit, the storm returned. Vibrations. Buzzes. Notifications firing like fireworks. And as I lay there staring at the ceiling, I understood something simple and brutal. They didn't want me. They wanted the support. The version of me that never said no. The version of me that paid the bills. The version of me they never had to love. That version was dead. And I didn't miss her. White heavy checkmark, the family collapses without you. By morning the chaos tripled. 37 missed calls. 11 voicemails. Wall after wall of messages, some guilt-tripping, some furious, some desperate. I made breakfast like nothing was happening. Toast. Scrambled eggs. A quiet kitchen. My phone buzzed non-stop against the countertop, vibrating like it was panicking. Took everything in me not to laugh. I didn't pick up until one voicemail from Dad came through flagged as urgent. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. His voice, cold, commanding, angry. You need to fix this, Susan. The restaurants can't survive without your help. You owe us that much. I actually let out a breathless laugh. As though my years, decades, of funding their lives had somehow left them entitled. Another voicemail. Brandon. Shouting. You think you can just walk away? You're selfish. Mom is crying because of you. Then my mother's voice. Soft. Trembling. Weaponized. Please, Susan. Don't do this to us. After everything we've been through. I closed my eyes and pressed both palms to the counter. Not because I was tempted. Because I was stunned by the irony. They weren't calling for forgiveness. They were calling for control. Another voicemail. This one from Tara. Her voice low. Urgent. Afraid. They know I told you. Brandon's furious. He's trying to spin it like you made it up. I'm scared, Susan. I exhaled. Slow. Steady. Don't worry, I said when I called her back quietly. I'm done explaining myself. And I meant it. White heavy checkmark, the meeting. The moment before the real revenge. A week passed like that. Dozens of messages. Dozens of attempts to pull me back into the role I'd played my whole life. But I didn't answer. Not once. Finally, I agreed to meet. Not to reconcile. To end it properly. Because closure is not for them. It's for you. The cafe was neutral territory. One of the few places in Tulsa where no one knew our family name. Rain misted outside, tapping quietly against the windows. They were already there when I walked in. Dead. Arms crossed. Pale but composed. Brandon. Hands fidgeting with his phone. Tara wasn't with them. And that told me everything about how ugly the last week had been in their house. Dad didn't waste a second. You've caused a disaster. The bills are overdue. Vendors are threatening to sue. I set my bag down gently, like I wasn't sitting at a table with the people who had just disowned me. My voice was calm. Too calm. That's not my problem anymore. Brandon leaned forward, sneering. You think you're better than us now? Just because you play with paint and furniture. My jaw tightened, but my face didn't move. Design, Brandon. The word you're looking for is design. He scoffed. You've always been dramatic. You love attention. I cut him off. Quiet. Precise. Deadly. You stole from the restaurants. Brandon froze. Dad's head snapped toward him. Mom's breath caught. The room went still. Brandon stiffened like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water over him. His jaw tightened. His fingers stopped tapping the table. His eyes, for the first time in his life, didn't look smug. They looked cornered. Dad's voice sharpened. What is she talking about? Brandon shot me a look that could have cracked glass. She's lying. But his voice wasn't steady. It wobbled just barely, but enough for Dad to hear, to notice, to fear. I didn't blink. Tara saw the records. Hidden accounts. Thousands missing. Years of transfers. Mom's hand flew to her chest. Dad's nostrils flared. He looked like a man trying to hold himself still while a tornado gathered behind his eyes. Brandon stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loud against the floor. Seriously? You're going to believe her? She's been jealous of me since high school. Enough, I said. Quiet. Not loud. But firm enough to slice through the room. This isn't about jealousy. This is about respect. And honesty. Two things I never got from this family. Mom's voice trembled. Susan, don't do this. I turned toward her slowly. We're past talking, Mom. Her face tightened. The kind of tightness that comes from a lifetime of pretending to be gentle while avoiding truth. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. You made that clear when you sent that text. The color drained from her face almost instantly. I didn't mean. I cut her off. You wrote, don't call or come over. We're done. And don't even think about the will, sweetie. I spoke the words exactly as they were written. Each syllable landing like a stone on polished wood. You meant it the first time. The cafe had gone silent. Even the barista had paused mid-pour, listening. Dad cleared his throat, trying to regain control. You've always been too sensitive, Susan. I almost laughed. No, Dad. You've just always mistaken cruelty for discipline. For the first time in my life, and possibly his, I watched my father falter. His face twitched. His jaw clenched. His eyes lost the authority he'd always held over me. I reached into my bag, pulled out a neatly folded folder and placed it on the table. Brandon frowned. Mom blinked rapidly. Dad stared at it like it might explode. I opened it. Fully. Deliberately. I sold my sustainable design project, I said. The sentence hung in the air. Brandon's eyebrows shot up. Mom froze like a statue. Dad leaned forward. Sold. I nodded. A national firm bought it for $1 million. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. I looked at each of them one by one. I built everything I have without your help. No loans. No family money. No handouts. Just me. Brandon scoffed, but the sound was thin. Weak. Fearful. Good for you. Want to meddle? I closed the folder gently. No, Brandon. I want you to understand something. I don't need this family anymore. And you don't get to call me when things fall apart. Dad's face twisted, red filling his cheeks. You think money makes you powerful? I leaned forward until my voice was a whisper dripping with calm fire. No, Dad. Walking away does. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We're still your family. I shook my head. Family doesn't use you like an ATM. Family doesn't erase you when you stop paying. Brandon slammed his fist on the table. The cups clattered. Mom flinched. The barista nearly dropped a mug. You're pathetic. You think you can just cut us out. I stared at him with a calm I didn't know I had inside me. Funny. That's exactly what you did to me. His face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. He opened his mouth again, probably to spit another insult, but I stood up before he could speak. Slow. Controlled. Powerful. I'm not your safety net anymore. My voice was steady. Not your backup plan. Not your excuse. Not the invisible engine behind your entire life. I picked up my bag. Dad's voice rose, desperate, angry, cracking. You'll regret this, Susan. My hand tightened on the chair. I didn't turn back. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll regret it on my own terms. I walked toward the door. And then behind me, in the smallest voice I'd ever heard from her, Mom whispered, "Please, Susan, don't do this." I paused just for a second, long enough to know I'd heard her, but not long enough to let her pull me back in. Then I pushed open the door. The cafe bell chimed softly. The air outside was cool, the sun low and golden across the street. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I didn't look. I didn't need to. When I reached my car, I finally took a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Through the cafe window I could still see them. 3 silhouettes arguing among themselves, voices muffled behind the glass. For the first time in my life, I wasn't part of that noise. I took out my phone, scrolled through the messages, hundreds of them, and pressed delete all. The screen went blank. Quiet. Pling. Just like my future. I started the engine. The radio clicked on, humming soft guitar strings. And as I pulled out of the parking lot, I realized something simple. I wasn't driving away from them. I was finally driving toward myself. I didn't hear from them for months after that cafe confrontation. No calls. No texts. No surprise knocks on my door. Just silence. And silence, as I would learn, is not peace. Sometimes, silence is the sound of something collapsing in the distance. For a while I didn't want to know. I kept my head down, kept building, kept designing, kept growing. But bad news has a way of finding you. Especially when it belongs to people who once believed they were untouchable. White heavy checkmark, the first rumble of the fall. It started with a message from an old high school friend. "Hey, everything okay with your family? I saw something weird in the paper." My stomach tightened. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I pulled up the Tulsa Business Ledger. And there was Hayes Family Restaurants facing vendor lawsuit. Below it, questions raised about missing funds. And beneath that, unnamed family member suspected in financial misconduct. Named. But anyone who knew the family knew exactly which member they were talking about. Brandon. My phone buzzed again. This time with a message from Tara. A single terrifying line. "It's all blowing up." I called her immediately. She answered on the second ring, voice shaking. Vendors have started comparing invoices. They all found the same irregularities. Money missing, dates not matching, equipment receipts that don't exist. I paced across my living room. "What did your parents say?" She let out a painful, hollow laugh. "They finally looked at the accounts. The real ones. Not the ones Brandon showed them." I stopped. Frozen. And silence. A breath. Then, "It's bad, Susan. Really bad." White heavy checkmark, the truth comes out. Brandon hadn't just skimmed money. He'd bled the restaurants dry. Stolen funds. Fake repairs. Personal expenses disguised as business costs. Tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. All while playing the golden child. All while calling me dramatic. All while Dad praised him as the future of the family. The same future that was now collapsing like an overcooked souffle. Vendors sued. Banks froze accounts. Dad scrambled to cover debts that Brandon had hidden under layers of lies. Mom, according to Tara, was in shock. Crying. Unable to sleep. Sitting at the kitchen counter whispering, "How did we not know?" And in a moment of awful poetic symmetry, the same question echoed in my own mind. How didn't they know? How didn't they see? How didn't they care enough to look? White heavy checkmark, the empire crumbles. A month later I caught the next headline. Hayes Restaurants closed 2 locations amid financial crisis. 2 months after that, Brandon Hayes under investigation for embezzlement. His mugshot wasn't public. Not yet. But the Whisper network in Tulsa was ruthless. Every business owner knew. Every vendor knew. Every chef and restaurant manager knew. The Golden Boy's name had turned into a punchline. Dad tried to fight it. Of course he did. He hired lawyers. He argued. He made speeches about family loyalty and misunderstandings. But numbers don't bow to pride. And records don't lie. Especially not the ones Brandon never thought anyone would find. By the end of the year, The Hayes empire was gone. All of it. Restaurants closed. Savings drained. House sold. The family that once stood on shiny Sunday diner floors now sat in a cramped rental outside the city, surrounded by peeling paint and unpaid bills. And still, none of them called me. Not a single apology. Not a real explanation. Not a moment of humility. Because the thing about people like them is this. Losing everything hurts. But admitting they were wrong hurts more. White heavy checkmark. Tara leaves. The final word. One afternoon, in the middle of polishing a design board for a hotel lobby in Austin, my phone buzzed. Tara, I'm leaving him. I swallowed. Are you safe? Yes. I'm in Dallas now. With my daughter. Her voice cracked. I tried to stay, but Brandon turned everything around on me. Blamed me for betraying the family. I clenched my jaw. You didn't betray anyone. You told the truth. She exhaled. A long, tired breath. I wish they had listened to you sooner. There was the validation I didn't realize I needed. Not from Brandon. Not from Dad. Not from Mom. From someone who saw the rot from the inside. Tara wasn't perfect, but she was the only one brave enough to speak the truth when it mattered. And because of that, she was the only one who survived the collapse with her integrity intact. White heavy checkmark. My rise. The life I built. Meanwhile, my life grew in the quiet spaces their drama once occupied. My firm expanded. I opened a second office, this time in New York. I spent my weeks flying between cities, redesigning hotels with floor-to-ceiling windows and warm lighting that embraced every traveler who walked in. Sometimes I'd be checking into a lobby I designed and pause as the warm golds and clean lines wrapped around me. And I'd whisper to myself, this is what home feels like, when you build it yourself. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't crave their praise. I didn't ache for their love. Because something miraculous happened once I finally cut them out. The space they left behind filled with peace. Not quiet. Not stillness. Peace. No late-night emergency calls. No guilt trips. No manipulation disguised as family needs. Just mornings with soft light. Evenings with wine and a good book. A life designed by me for me. White heavy checkmark. One last call from Tulsa. I was sitting in a sunlit cafe in Manhattan, sketching ideas for a rooftop remodel when my phone buzzed. Unknown Tulsa number. I stared at it as it rang. My heartbeat didn't spike. My stomach didn't drop. I didn't tense or tremble. I just watched it. Let it ring out. The sound faded beneath the soft jazz drifting through the cafe. And as I lifted my cup, the same tea I'd sipped the morning after my mother's text. Steam curled through the sunlight. It tasted bitter. But I finally understood. The bitterness wasn't from the tea. It was from the lesson. White heavy checkmark. The lesson. Peace doesn't come from fixing people who don't want to change. Peace comes from walking away. And letting them face the consequences. Of the world they built. Without you. People ask me sometimes, do you miss them? And the truth? I miss the version of them I wished was real. The parents who might have loved me without a price tag. The brother who might have protected me instead of using me. The family who might have seen my worth before the world did. But that version never existed. Now when I think of family, I think of respect. Of quiet mornings where no one is asking for money. Of silence that means safety, not punishment. Family isn't blood. Family is who doesn't flinch. When you finally choose yourself. A year passed. A full 12 months of life without them. 12 months without guilt in my inbox. Without late-night emergencies that weren't mine to solve. Without the constant gnawing ache of being the lesser child. And in those 12 months I learned something powerful. When you stop giving people access to hurt you, they stop having the power to define you. I didn't realize how heavy their expectations were until I wasn't carrying them anymore. The air around me felt different, cleaner. My home felt warmer. My work didn't feel like an escape. It felt like a celebration of everything I'd built despite them. And on an afternoon that felt like any other, sitting beside a window in a Manhattan cafe, I found myself thinking about them unexpectedly. Not with longing or anger or hate, but with clarity. White heavy checkmark. What really happened when I walked away. People always imagine that walking away comes with fireworks. Dramatic music, triumphant slow motion, confetti from the sky. But the truth? Walking away feels quiet. Almost too quiet. Like standing in a room where you can finally hear your own breathing after years of drowning in noise. When I finally cut them out of my life, there wasn't victory. There was space. And space, I learned, becomes whatever you build inside it. Some people fill it with new relationships. Some fill it with old dreams. I filled mine with peace. And once I tasted that peace, I realized I'd been starving for years. White heavy checkmark, the real price of peace. People think revenge is loud, but the most powerful revenge is silent. No screaming. No crying. No pleading. No second chances. Freedom. Because the moment you stop trying to be loved by people who only needed you, everything changes. My father lost the empire he worshipped. My brother lost the pedestal he'd lived on. My mother lost the daughter she assumed would always return no matter how deeply she was cut. I didn't destroy them. I simply stopped saving them. And that was enough. White heavy checkmark, karma doesn't always arrive with fury. Sometimes it arrives with quiet accuracy. The Hayes family name used to echo in Tulsa like a legacy. But after the lawsuits, the investigations, the debts, and the disgrace, the name Hayes became something else entirely. A cautionary tale. People whispered about them in grocery lines. Chefs joked about them behind kitchen doors. Investors used them as an example of what happens when pride blinds leadership. And I didn't lift a single finger to make any of it happen. I didn't leak documents. I didn't push the lawsuits. I didn't report Brandon's theft. Karma did all the work. I just stepped aside. White heavy checkmark, peace isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. My firm grew faster than I expected. New York, Houston, Phoenix, hotels, restaurants, luxury spaces with my name on brass plaques at the entrance. Sometimes I'd walk through a lobby I'd designed. Warm lights, soft music, clean architecture. And I'd think, this is what home feels like when you build it from scratch. Not from obligation. Not from guilt. Not from fear. But from vision. And the people around me, my employees, my friends, my clients, they saw me. Not as a disappointment. Not as a wallet. Not as the difficult daughter. They saw me as someone who built something worth respecting. I'd never had that before. Not from the people who raised me. White heavy checkmark, the last call I didn't answer. One day my phone buzzed with a number from Tulsa. Not blocked. Not hidden. Just unfamiliar. I watched it ring. A tiny part of me wondered if it was my mother. Another part wondered if it was my father. A smaller, sadder part wondered if it was Brandon, calling from a place where consequences had finally caught up to him. I didn't answer. Not out of spite, but because I didn't need to know. The version of me who needed closure was gone. The version of me who needed their love was gone. The version of me who would have answered out of fear, hope, guilt, habit. All gone. When the call ended, I took a sip of my tea. The same kind I'd drunk the morning after my mother cut me out of her life. And for the first time, the bitterness didn't sting. It grounded me. It reminded me who I'd become without them. White heavy checkmark, the final truth I learned. People ask me sometimes, do you regret walking away? And the truth is complicated. I regret that I ever believed I had to earn their love. I regret the years I spent bending myself into shapes that didn't fit me. I regret paying the price of admission for a family that never saw my value unless it came on a check. But walking away, well, I don't regret that. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave the table. Where love is withheld. Like a reward you'll never deserve. And sometimes, the most powerful form of revenge is simply living well. Without the people who tried to convince you that you couldn't. White heavy checkmark, the message. To whoever needs to hear this. If you're listening to this and you feel invisible in your own family. If you're the one who gives everything and receives nothing back. If you're the one who gets blamed, overlooked, disrespected, underappreciated. Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me. You don't need their permission to choose yourself. You don't need their approval to build a life that is bigger, brighter, and more peaceful than they ever imagined. You don't need to earn love from people who treat love like currency. You are allowed to walk away. And sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's self-respect. If this story hit you right in the heart, if it reminded you of your own battles, your own boundaries, your own breakthroughs, then take a second to like this video. Drop a comment saying, I choose myself. I want to hear your story. And if you want more deeply satisfying, emotionally charged revenge stories, make sure you subscribe. Because the next story, might just be the reminder you need that sometimes the quietest revenge is the one that sets you free.